welcome to the Intuitive Mind. I am Veronica Musha and so happy to have you here today. I have such a special guest. Nadiya Shah is with me today. She is an amazing human. She's an astrologer, an author, and the creator of Synchronicity University. She's really stellar and very inspirational. I encourage you to stay tuned and listen to every word this woman says. She is truly wise and she has so much to offer. On that note, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Please click like and share with everybody that you know. I need it. And now, without further ado, let's welcome the amazing, the incomparable, super Astro Fabulous Nadiya Shah.
Oh, can you see me?
See you. Hi.
You're so lovely. Thank you for your patience and everything.
Oh no, you're early. I am grateful to you. Welcome, Astro Fabulous Nadiya Shah. It's a real honor. Thank you for being here. So I would like to learn a little bit about your upbringing and how you chose this unique profession. And as I was saying before, you really added I think if you weren't an astrologer, you would have been a doctor or a scientist. That's what I don't know if that ever resonated with you, but that's what I'm picking up in the sense of you're very precise. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my parents wanted me to become Prime Minister of Canada. So I was born and raised in Canada, and I remember my father and my mother, they sort of prepared me to become a lawyer because my dad had this plan. He thought, first you become a lawyer and you specialize in human rights, and then you can translate that into a career in politics. It was a very serious thing. I mean, I remember as a young person arguing with my dad and debating and talking about like equal rights for women. That was very big to them because they were feminists, and they are feminists. So I mean, the universe had other plans for my life. And when I was in university, I remember like I was studying all these different theories. I majored at first in social justice. And about halfway through, I switched to philosophy because I felt like, okay, I'm learning all these theories, but I think there's something deeper. And I want to go to that place. I want to understand what's happening in people's hearts. And that led me to change my major as an undergrad. And then I went on to do my master's degree. And it was with the Faculty of Religious Studies, but it was essentially looking at how people have tried to understand a higher will. And one of the more powerful ways we see is through astrology, right? So I got a chance to study it academically, yes, on a more immediate level. Ever since I was a kid, it was just like always there. Astrology was just a part of my life. My mom and my aunts loved going to astrologers and psychics and things, and they started realizing that, oh, she could be good at this. So they started giving me books. And then it just sort of grew very naturally, very organically, and became what it is today so far, and what it's going to be in the future.
Yes. Do you remember when you were really little, like 7, 8 years old or younger? Do you remember how you saw the world, your perception of things?
Yeah, of course. I think I remember looking at the sky with wonder. Like I know a lot of kids do that though. I've seen it. Like they're like, wow, the moon, the stars, and I was like that. And I remember just feeling like I think maybe it was my parents because the way that they were teaching me, but it was like, there's something to do in this lifetime, basically. There's something to do. And astrology is the vehicle. I feel what I'm really motivated by is equality and helping people feel less alone in the world. And I think when we remember that we're connected to the sky, then we remember we're connected to each other. And so that is a big reason, if not the underlying reason why I do what I do is to affirm, yes, a wise and loving universe, but more than that, to affirm a sense of how we truly are each other, and to unite us more, to lift us in some way. That's really why I do what I do.
So when did it change? So it was in your master's that you decided, because that's a big jump. If they wanted you to be a politician, and then I know, I know how the world views our line of work as woo-woo, foo-foo, whatever you call it.
Exactly.
Less serious, in other words. So it takes a lot of guts and a lot of self-belief and a lot of conviction to say, no, I'm going to go for this. So can you share how that came about for you, that it wasn't, or maybe it was a challenge, or I don't know if it was a dilemma, or it was like, because it did happen organically. I think it always does. And it sounds to me, it was a matter of just trusting and going with it, what life was showing you, where it was, it feels like it has a lot to do with your knowing yourself and trusting your inner guidance. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
No, yeah, I think that I felt it when I changed my major is when I felt it. Like by then it was already starting to take shape. And even before I finished my undergrad, I was already, I'd launched my website. I already was very deeply committed. It was like, this is what I'm doing. This is the career. And yeah, at first people didn't really understand it. They were like, "Ooh, what's this? Whatever." But then once I got into graduate school and everybody saw that I was serious, I felt a lot of love and support from other people, like in my family, my parents, my extended family. That's my dog. One second.
My show is intended for teens and younger people. And I like to encourage them to go within and trust themselves and not to listen to the adults so much. Because not because they're adults, but because when we listen to other people outside of ourselves, it's not pure messages that we're getting. We're getting everyone else's opinions and thoughts and feelings and et cetera, et cetera. And so when it comes to creating your own path, it is really important to go within. And so I thought perhaps you can share some of your experiences and what you use to be in touch with yourself. I don't know if you're aware of, all your intuition and you use it. Some people have tools to use it, others don't. Like I don't use, so I use tarot cards to do readings for other people. But for me, I never do readings for myself. I just go with my gut. I just trust that, life is going to take me. I try not to be rigid and go with the flow. But do you remember, especially like in your beginnings, if there was struggle? Apparently it wasn't. Your family was super supportive, which is amazing.
Yes. Well, look, they came, my mom and my aunts, of course, they were a big part of it, but it was, an adjustment for them. But I mean, I remember even as a little girl knowing that I didn't want to be a politician or I didn't want to be prime minister. And I remember very clearly once as a little girl, we were watching something and the prime minister was getting off of a plane and on TV. And I remember thinking, like, if you're prime minister, you can't wear what you really want to wear. And I don't want to do that. So like, it was so important to me, even at that age, like my self-expression was so important. I loved like clothes and all that stuff at a very young age. So the fact that I would have to conform, even then I knew that wasn't for me. But I think now, like, as you were saying, you just mentioned how you kind of, it just becomes a part of your life. It isn't necessarily that you have to do something to put you in an intuitive space. It's that you kind of live in that space. I think I can completely relate to that, that's how it is for me as well. But, if people do want to get in touch, I think that life lets you know, life lets you know what lights you up, what you really want to do. And sometimes I think it's just hard to acknowledge it because we want what we want for so many different reasons. Sometimes we think we love it, but it isn't that we love it. It's that We think like, tell the story that, for many years, I thought I was supposed to be Madonna. And this is because I grew up at a time where she really was the only woman who had a voice, right, in the world, and she had the world's attention and all of that. And so I thought I wanted to be Madonna. And the thing is, it never felt right. It never felt right. Like, I made some traction with singing and things like that, but it never felt like that was my comfort zone. It was always like something was off for me. And I remember the moment that I realized that the world already has a Madonna. It doesn't need another Madonna, but maybe it could use a Nadiya. That was like an amazing moment for me, and a moment of insight and understanding and awareness. But it was also really scary because I realized, like, okay, the world already has a Madonna, but maybe it could use a Nadiya. And I didn't know who that was. Like, I had no idea who that was. And this is when I was in university in the early years. This is right around that time. And a part of me felt kind of dead inside. Like, really, like my friends say that it was like I was there, but I wasn't there, because I was just numb. I was mourning. I was mourning the loss of someone who I thought I was, but then realized I wasn't. But then it was like, okay, who am I? And then starting to build out of that. It was astrology that really helped me personally. And then I realized, wow, this is something that can help other people too. And maybe I could be part of that. And that, on the other side of that very difficult transition, was my, launching my website and going into astrology full time.
Wow, that's fascinating. And then it is, so I also, when I didn't want to be Madonna, I wanted to be on Broadway and be a Broadway star. Also, and it was hard too. It was hard. Yeah, I spent years and years and money in classes and headshots, and it didn't happen. And again, yes, and I wasn't all that comfortable. Yes, I totally relate to that.
Yeah. And I know that a lot of people would, because I remember going on auditions and things, and you're in this room and you can tell that a lot of people are not comfortable. They don't really want to be there. They're there for all kinds of reasons. I remember years ago listening to this radio show on CBC radio, and it was talking about, is it a mistake to pursue your passion, basically, is what the premise was. And what I realized while listening to that was a few things. One was, there were a few people who called in and said, like, oh, I used to go on auditions and I hated it. Now I sell cars and I'm so much happier. And I was thinking, well, yeah, there's more than one way to be an actor, right? There's tons of different ways to be an actor. You can do anything you want to do, but you do have to be entrepreneurial in today's world. And so if you're willing to be entrepreneurial, to go your own way, to experiment, to put yourself out there, to learn as you go, if you're willing to grow, but you're also willing to do things on your own, then you can make anything work, I believe. You can make just about anything work. But when it is that you think, okay, I have to be on a sitcom, well, yeah, if you want to be on a sitcom, then you have to be the kind of person who likes auditioning. You have to be the kind of person who enjoys it, who thinks of it as a thrill or a competition or fun or whatever. If not, then that may not be the way for you. But there are a lot of different ways to be an actor. And maybe people don't want to be an actor. Like, I realized that isn't for me. Like, it never felt right. The way that astrology does, the way that me just talking into a camera, talking about astrology, writing. When I write, there's a high with writing. And that tells me that I'm on the right track. And I think that I wanted to be Madonna because I wanted a voice in the world. Mm-hmm. And I think that clarity, that it wasn't about being Madonna, it was about a voice. Well, there are all different kinds of ways to have a voice in the world.
Yeah, so that's very true. Yes. No, that's true. And I realized, people don't seem to realize. All you see when you see people on TV is like, oh, you'll be famous and you will be recognized and then you'll have money. And that's all there is to it. But it's not. Like, I've been interviewing a lot of people, and amongst Lea Salonga, she's a Broadway star.
Good for you.
Definitely margarita. But what I learned is very interesting. They are so humble and so obedient. It is very interesting to me. Like, I was shocked. I mean, you're laying so long. Like, you should be like, hey, I do whatever, she won Tonys and she's been in Hollywood and. But no, so there's something that goes, a certain personality that you really do have to make it as an actor, because it's a very humble, so I don't have it. And I don't think you have it either. You're strong, you have strong opinions, you do have a strong voice, you are an entrepreneur, you are a self-started. And to be an actor, you really have to take direction really well. And you have to be super humble. And if the director tells you how to do this, you do it. Because if you don't do it, you don't have a job anymore. Mm-hmm. And that's what the job is about. It's about, complying with what they say. And I had a really hard time with that. I have opinions. Sometimes, the director's ideas, I didn't think were the smartest. And then I'll voice my opinion. And of course, I lost every job I ever got. And so... and I didn't mean to. I wasn't mean about it. I was just asking questions. It was legit. Like, he would say something and then he would say something different. So I was confused. You asked me to be loud, but now the music is covering me. So you just, anyway. And so, no, anyway, it wasn't for me.
Yes.
A lot of personalities and a lot
like that. Exactly. Thank you. A lot of personalities. Yeah.
And it was flashing.
Now, as I get older and I, realize what I have built, I realize how much my freedom means to me, how much my autonomy means. Like, there's nothing that matters as much to me now. And actually, I remember as an astrologer years ago, I had a production company in Toronto very interested in developing a show with me. And I remember doing this, development and recording the pilot episode 3 times. And it was exhausting. It was demoralizing. Like, I had a vision for what I wanted to present to the world, astrologically and otherwise. And they just had a different vision and they just kept trying to steer me. At first they were like, yeah, we're on the same page. But then it was like, no, come here, come here, come here. But my soul was like, no. And I was like really devastated when I realized this wasn't working. And I was the one who had to send the email and say, this isn't working. I appreciate this opportunity so much, but I think we should leave this alone for now. Because I had poured so much of myself for months and months into, and it seemed like such a big deal to have this, huge production company wanting to develop this show with me. But in my soul, I knew that, they had a completely different vision. They would keep saying, there's too much astrology. There's too much astrology. It's not this enough. It's not that enough. Like, that's who I am, like that's what I'm presenting here. But then what ended up happening was, for a month, I just didn't want to get out of bed. I was just so exhausted and disappointed. And then I didn't really know what to do. I had other disappointments happen around that time. So I decided to just take a trip. And while I was on that trip, I was recording and I was interviewing my former professors and people I knew. And I just realized very clearly, YouTube is the way to go. Do YouTube.
That's when it happened. I was going to ask you about that. That's funny. It just came to it.
And I remember when I came back, that next day after I came back, I was recording. I established a studio in my apartment. I moved out of the bedroom and I made it into a studio. And I just dedicated myself so fully. And especially in the beginning, it just always felt like I was fighting for something. I was trying to make it happen. I was struggling a lot. And I always share, I've been a full-time astrologer now for about 15 years. The first 7 years of my business, I lived below the poverty line. Now, my mom doesn't like me to say this and talk about this, but it's the truth. I want people to know there was a lot of work that went in without always feeling like the universe was responding with abundance. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But it was once the work became, I don't know, it became what it needed to be. it became something real, it became grounded, or it became solid, because I'd put in the time, I'd put in the sacrifice, I'd been learning about myself along the way. And a part of that, what really helped that was coming to Mexico. So it was way back in 2012, it was 8 years ago. Right around this time of year, I came to Mexico for the end of the Mayan calendar, the big celebrations that were happening. And I remember traveling around, but when I came to Cancun, it just felt like home. And I realized that there was another way to live. I didn't have to only live up here and only fight and try to make something happen, that I could go slower. I could be integrated. I could be happy. I could dance. I could listen to amazing music. I could eat wonderful food. Like all of this stuff, I realized, and I just knew I was home. And I went home because at January 1st, 2013, and I had Lady Gaga tickets. So literally like 6 weeks later, I went to the Lady Gaga concert. The day after, I moved to Mexico, and I haven't looked back. But once I allowed myself to enjoy my life, everything else just fell into place. Everything else, like I didn't have to fight for anything anymore. It was like, this is who I am. And my audience just started to grow so much. My business got a lot stronger. And now like I have 4 employees, and it's just wonderful to be able to have something that puts good things into the world, but also to know that I didn't have to sacrifice my peace to have it, and to not even know that I didn't have my peace. Once I realized, wow, the way I was living, not peaceful. This is peaceful. Balance is peaceful. Dancing and singing, and yes, working and writing and all of this is all a part of peace. It's a holistic approach. Having friendships and relationships is all a part of having a peaceful life for me. And once I prioritized my peace, the business just kind of took care of itself, because I'd done the work to make the ground strong. The foundation was strong. It could just sort of take its own momentum from there.
I love it. And I love it that, thank you for sharing that. And thank you for sharing the struggle part, quote unquote. And the struggle, I mean, did you feel it? Did you live it as a struggle when you were, quote unquote, poor, let's say? You did?
You know, I'm very fortunate. It's not that I felt poor, right? It wasn't, money was never the motivation to me. It was always about, again, having a voice in the world, doing something good, doing something that I could feel proud of. Like, yes, I've done this, or I've achieved this, or whatever. And I do remember that time, like before, like pre-Mexico, let's put it that way, my life before Mexico.
Are you in New York?
No, I am in Cancun.
No. At the time, before.
I was in Toronto.
Okay, so you moved from Toronto to Mexico.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Toronto, and I lived in a downtown apartment for 10 years, and I loved my apartment. And that was where I established my business, you know, like that gave me the space to figure out myself and work through some pretty heavy emotions. And on the other side of it, to start my business, like all of that happened in that sacred place. But I do remember fighting, like just always feeling like I was struggling. And the struggle was more for some sense of growth or traction or some sense of recognition. And it was during that time, like I remember something else that happened right around the time that, like, okay, there was a month after the pilot didn't work out, and I was so like dead inside. And then I remember at the time I was writing daily horoscopes for Canadian newspapers. So that was my dream up until that point, was I just wanted to write and inspire people with daily horoscopes every day. And so I was doing that. And I remember my agent at the time, he called and he said, I'm just about to sign a deal, and your horoscope is going to go to all these places all over the world, and financially you're going to be amazing and all of that. And I was so happy. And then the deal fell through, like literally, like that was the other disappointment, right? It just felt like one on the other on the other. And then I was so devastated, like to have one devastation, then to go up again, and then to have another. That all made me say, I don't know what to do. I'm taking a trip. So for me, like, I empower myself with new experiences, with travel in particular. And I just decided to go for the summer to Europe because I went to university in Europe as well. I knew a lot of people there. And that's what I did. And it was during that time that the epiphany came, like that realization, oh my God, this, do video, do YouTube, go this direction. And then that's what I ended up doing. But I share that because it's almost as if sometimes I think those disappointments, they happened so that I could get to that realization and that awakening. And all that struggle, right? It was that I was willing to try. I was thinking about this earlier today. I think that what happens, especially I have seen this in some people, is that you're not even willing to try, or you're afraid to try, or put yourself out there, or, you know, in some way say, hey, I'm going to try this or go in this direction. And especially when you're doing things on your own, so entrepreneurially, you have to cast your net wide. So you have to try all kinds of different things. Some things are going to work, some things aren't going to work, and that's okay. But along the way, you develop something like self-knowledge or wisdom or your voice. And that's how it came about, was really with all those experiences I learned. Like I learned to listen to myself. You know, I learned that, hey, if something doesn't feel right, you can fight and fight and fight, but if it's not meant to be, it won't be. I also learned that sometimes in order to make big gains, you have to be willing to sacrifice. And sometimes the sacrifices have to come, and the universe wants to know that you truly are dedicated in order for the big things to come. And also, I think sometimes it's not what you think it's going to be, and that's okay too, right? Because I know how much I tried and strove and sacrificed to be Madonna, but I was never meant to do that. But I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about myself when I realized that's not who I am. Well, then who am I, right? And I think that's the point. I think that's the point, is the personal lessons, the personal growth, the spiritual growth, and how it ultimately adds up to us finding our ways one way or another.
Very nice. Thank you so much. That's
Thank
great.
you.
Do you have any spiritual practices, any daily rituals, or do you meditate at all?
I do meditate. I don't like have there are times when I've had a very strict regimen, and times when I haven't. Right now, I don't as much. I mean, I have a book, one of my books, The Body and the Cosmos, is on meditation, right? It has meditations to all the signs and everything. So there has been that. There has been, again, another one of my books is called Prayers to the Sky. So there have been like prayers and rituals and different things that I've done. But I do think that just taking a breath, like that's even something I mention in my book as well, is that the intention is very powerful. So we do all these things like meditate, or, you know, light incense and candles or whatever we want. Ultimately, it is the self, it is the intention, it is the breath, that moment that you take, that can be the ritual, or just that energy you need. And I think that it can be very powerful. And anything that I can do to be in the moment. I mean, like I think about, I never had a dog before I had Biggie, and Biggie now is almost 3 years old. That's why this is up here. Like this is Biggie, yeah, Biggie Smalls, that's his name. And so.
Is that a painting?
Yeah, well, it is a print, canvas painting, yeah. It was based, yes, I had it, a painting, then I got it put on a canvas. That's how it worked, yeah. And so the way in which my heart has expanded with him, the way in which, yeah, like it is its own spiritual practice. It is its own meditation, you know, and the diligence to be gentle with him, because he's such a big looking dog, and people get scared when they see him. But I know that he is gentle, and I know that I need to be gentle with him, and then he responds in kind. And these are spiritual practices to me as well. To be able to give that and receive that love puts me in the present moment very powerfully too.
Yeah. So what's coming up next, Nadia?
What's coming up next? Well, look,
you're gonna stay there. You're gonna be, so now you're a Mexican.
Well, yeah, well, honorary. I'm an honorary Mexican, we can say, right? And I've been here, yeah, for like 8 years, like right around the time I came, which is, yeah, it just goes by. That's the thing.
True.
It just goes by. And it's wonderful. I love it. This is my home. I plan to be here for many more years to come. And what else is coming up? Well, look, mid-December, there's a very powerful astrological configuration taking place called the Great Conjunction, or the Star of Hope. So I'll be launching new things. I'll be saying, here's some brand new things that I'm doing. So that's coming up. And then in 2021, I'm hoping that we get to gather again. What I wouldn't do to travel.
I know.
I have one of the events I was supposed to do in September of this year has been postponed to August of next year.
Wow.
And so we'll see if it ends up taking place, but I would love that. Yeah.
Where is it?
It is in Colorado.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yes, I am. I can't wait to go back to having in-person seminars and classes. And it's been very hard for me. very depressed. And I know this is not how it's supposed to be.
Yeah. But then also, we all go through times like that. That's the thing too. It's not always going to be high and light and easy and breezy. There are times when it feels like whether you want to call it your energy or your faith, when faith is healthy, it wanes, right? When faith is healthy, it doubts itself from time to time. And it is very natural to doubt your direction as well, or your enthusiasm, like enthusiasm wanes also. And I think that's just part of like a universal law, if you will, just like the tides come in and the tides go out. There's going to be times when you feel very connected and times where maybe you don't feel as connected. And both are valuable, like both have their space. And also look, all of us right now are in some form of forced isolation. And isolation is deeply spiritual. Like isolation is something that many spiritual masters, the celebrated spiritual masters, have taken on in order to uncover the truth or their truth. And so I think all of us right now, because we're shifting into a whole new understanding of the world and of humanity, all of us have been asked to isolate. And some people are not doing good with it, and some people have embraced it. And you really realize what matters. And if you are willing, you realize what's real. And if you're not able to accept what's real and what isn't real, then and I've seen people kind of get lost in the unreal, right? The far out, the way out there, instead of really acknowledging the truth of how they feel about their relationship, about, their lives, about their, all of these things. We've been asked to be more honest with ourselves. And that's hard. Like, it's hard for some people to just sit still. It's hard for some people to go within. And so I have a lot of compassion for that. I understand that. But I think that if you can accept that sometimes it's going to wane, sometimes it's going to be frustration, especially right now, then it makes the moments of insight, like just the acceptance of it, makes you realize when things are either good or you have the insight or the idea or the creativity. It sparks again eventually.
Yes, good. Thank you. Thank you for that. Yes, it has to come back. Definitely. So thank you so much. Do you have any last? This was a good way to get him back. Wonderful. And I have no words to express my gratitude to you for your generosity, for being here. And your story is so inspiring. It's so great. I just loved it. I had the best time today. I really did. So thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you, Veronica. Thank you so much. It was so nice to talk to you. You're just shining so brightly. I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I'll have everyone check you out. I have, and your website is also in the description below. So you can click there, Nadiya Shah, your fabulous astrologer. Hurry up before she becomes too big and you can afford her.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining me today. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. And I will see you again here next week. All my love.